there was a certain point where things just, it was like a free for all. Everyone was doing their own thing, and when you watched politicians being interviewed, it was like they were living on a different planet to the reality that I had experienced, because you'd go to parks and you were supposed to be in a lockdown, but the parks would be full.
Hi everyone, it's Saturday the 11th of July and I'm in the North London suburb of Mill Hill as we in the UK still find ourselves facing the coronavirus crisis. Today I'm going to be interviewing people here to get a better sense of how this crisis has impacted them, how they think the government has handled it thus far, and what they think the long-term impact of it will be on our society. Now, to round off this intro, I just want to say, please make sure you're subscribed to this channel. What do you do for a living?
I'm an accountant.
So how has this crisis impacted your place of work?
I work mainly from home, and a lot of the work I've been able to do has been from home. If anything, it's created a larger workload on my side.
So I'm a talent agent. I manage different TV presenters.
So how has your place of work been impacted by this crisis?
Quite heavily. So a lot of studio TV work has completely had to stop. A lot of people just aren't working at all, just because it's not safe to do so. So at the moment, there's really not much work at all.
Oh yeah, so I'm a student currently waiting for my A-level results to come out, and then once they come out, hopefully I'll be able to get into the uni that I want to get into. But yeah, so I'm currently waiting for that.
How do you feel about that?
Because I'm not really sure how they're handling our grades. Well, the government, I don't know how the government are handling it. Our teachers have sent what they think that we would have got. So it's kind of like I trust my teachers to give me what I should have got, because I know I worked hard for my grades. But if the government decides to mess it up a little bit, because they don't actually know me personally, so my teachers could give me an A or an A star, whatever. But because everyone else's teachers would have given their students high results, they could have easily inflated their results as well. So the government would have pushed it down. So yeah, I'm kind of worried about that. So I'm not really sure what grades I'll get.
I'm finding it has been a strain, not going out for long periods, the queuing up, because I'm always in a rush. That's been very difficult. And not being able to go to gym, being restricted, and I'm finding that, and not seeing members of my family, that being difficult.
I've got a daughter who has 3 children living in Dubai, and she comes over for the summer every year, and she obviously hasn't been able to, so I miss that time together. My son lives in Israel, and we were supposed to be going there in May, and obviously we couldn't go because of the coronavirus. I miss going on holiday. We're missing 2 holidays this year, and you know when you're retired, and that's what you look forward to, is going on holiday.
You haven't seen members of your family. Can you expand on that?
Well, my mum is not well, and she's in South Africa, so there's no chance of travel, I would say, until maybe the end of the year, also because of finances on my side, and also my children who live in London, but only being able to see them now that lockdown has been relieved a bit.
What are your predicted grades and what do you want to study?
So my predicted grades are A star, A star, A, but that doesn't mean that I will get those grades because so many things have changed, and then so many other students that would have worked much harder as well. But I feel like I could get those grades, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
And what do you want to study at university?
I want to study mechanical engineering, hopefully at UCL, but if I don't get into UCL, maybe Queen Mary. So those are my 2 options currently.
I'm at Mill Hill Broadway, which is an important local retail area for Mill Hill. There are places of work here that are open at the moment, but also ones that have clearly indicated they're closed at present due to coronavirus. So you are the owner of the shop just beside us, the flower shop here. Tell me about it.
Well, I'm not the only owner. I've got a partner. What can I tell you? It's been really stressful. 3 months closed. You still have to pay bills, whether it's closed or not. And we're trying to get back to normal.
When did this shop open?
Only a year ago.
So you opened it a year ago. Coronavirus happens, and then
We closed for 3 months. Then we closed for 3 months.
so give me. Might be a very a question with an obvious answer, but can you give me a sense of how this has impacted you financially?
Well, if you don't sell anything, you don't earn anything. So obviously, the consequences is no money, and you still have to pay bills. I mean, I had BT the other day on the phone saying to me that because we were late in paying, I have to pay an extra £40. And I said, what about coronavirus? I wasn't even here. So,
And what did they say?
well, they dropped the £40.
Behind me is Mill Hill Library, which is just off Mill Hill Broadway, but also currently closed due to the coronavirus pandemic.
I'm retired.
Okay, and how has this crisis impacted you financially?
It hasn't really, but it has all my children. I have 3 children, one who's self-employed, so it has impacted them, and also one who's buying a house or in the process of buying a house, and it was all up in the air. And so they're not quite sure whether to go ahead because they don't know whether their jobs are secure. So yeah, it has impacted them. Yeah.
So I've been indoors all the time, just getting over cancer. So I've been indoors, I wasn't really out anyway, I couldn't do anything anyway. So basically it hasn't really affected me anyway. But mentally it's affected me when I'm looking at what's going on and the terror and the shop shutting, and that's what's affecting me. And will my job be there next year? Will my place close down? I don't know. How will it affect everybody? That's the worry. Like, I still get me money, but I'd rather be back at work because it's boring. You know what I mean? This is boring. There's no. It's like you can't go anywhere. You can't really do anything. So, we need to get shit moving again.
For my kids' schools, both of them go to 2 different schools. I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old. They're in 2 different secondary schools. Both schools have provided work on a daily basis online for the children to just get on with it. And I've had situations, because I've also taken up a different job during this time, I've had situations where they're asking me questions about their work, and it really gets to me because I'm thinking, I'm trying to earn an income while this is going on, and I'm having to deal with explaining schoolwork, and I don't think that's my responsibility to do that. So once I've actually had to send an email to my other daughter's teacher to say, she's having difficulty with this. And with her, I had to complain that she was spending too much time sat at the table doing too much work, without the teacher's input. So it has got to me as a parent.
And I also have a daughter who was due to get married and is now having to curtail everything really, down to 30 people in a church. So yeah, it's changed for her as well.
In case you are wondering, Mill Hill is part of the parliamentary constituency of Hendon, a seat last won by Labour in 2005. The Conservatives have won it at the 4 general elections since, but have secured no more than an 8% higher vote share than Labour in the constituency on each of those occasions. This constituency is also estimated to have voted 58% in favour of Remain in the 2016 EU referendum.
I don't know what was going on. Why was there a mad lockdown? Was it necessary? If you get a cold or a flu before, you're better off walking around and getting it over with, aren't you? Like, there's so much going on. Like, all the deaths, they just put them down as, you fell out of a plane, COVID. There's no flu deaths, there's no other deaths. Nearly all the deaths have been put down as COVID-19 deaths. So there's another question to be answered, what's that? So he was run over by a bus, COVID-19. Do you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of that been going on all over the world, not just England, everywhere.
Like, the news has just been really sad, and then all the people that have died. And I feel like the government isn't telling us the whole thing properly as well. Like they said, like 40,000 people have died, but there's also like way more people in care homes as well that like could have been dying. And then people have died like at their homes as well, so that's even worse. Like I don't think that the number they've given us is correct.
What do you think the wider impact of this crisis will be on our society in the long term?
I think it will be in terms of the economics. I think it will be quite harsh, and I'm very concerned about there will be payback. I'm worried about the tax, because I personally pay a huge amount of tax, and I'm concerned that I'm going to feel that impact. I'm also worried about the debt that the country I know there isn't high interest rates, but I am concerned about the level of spending. It seems as if money's just been thrown at this issue without a lot of thought going into it. That's what the impression that I get.
Shops have closed, and it's nothing's going to be the same. Can't go on holiday. People are frightened to fly. Can't go on cruises. I love cruising. Don't know what's going to happen. We're in limbo.
What do you think?
I think it's stopped our social life completely. We enjoyed going out to eat. We can't do that anymore. We can't see friends. If you see friends, you've got to go to the garden, so you're dependent on the weather. The weather hasn't been great, so it's stopped our social life. It's had a big impact, and I think it's a dramatic impact for your generation and our grandchildren. It's a terrible, terrible thing.
Not to talk about the financial impact of this. I don't know if I'm ever going to restart my child minding business. I don't know that yet, because until a vaccine is found and this is well under control, I don't feel confident that we're going to be able to recover from this.
Well, I don't think it's going away. I think we have to learn to live with it. Has to be a vaccination or treatment before anything will settle down. But I think it creates a lot of problem already, because a lot of people have lost their jobs, and it will be very high unemployment.
We need rules and regulations, but I really do believe that this whole virus thing is rubbish. That's the reason why you don't see me with a mask. Do you understand? I don't believe it's real. Do you understand? And even if it is real, it's just the flu or a common cold. I believe anybody that's got any type of mucus in their body at the moment could test positive for coronavirus. Honestly. And it's all about getting this vaccine to vaccinate society. Do you understand? And that vaccine is going to be a chip. And they're going to be able to control us, and they want to make it into a cashless society. It's so much to speak about. I can't put it into one session, but I think you know what I'm talking about. But we need different people. We need to get rid of them all. Get rid of them all. They're not good people. They're Satanists. Yeah. I'm a single parent at the moment. I just had a baby a few months ago. Yeah.
So what has been the impact of this crisis on you financially?
Well, financially, it's kind of affected me because I'm used to, before I had my child, I was working, and obviously I haven't been able to work, and then I've had to go on to benefits, and it took a while for benefits to be sorted out, and at the same time, I've had to wait for backdatements and stuff like that, and I'm kind of used to depending on family members, but because I've recently moved to the area, I've kind of been by myself, so yeah, it's kind of been funny for me financially because of the whole pandemic.
Where do you get your news from? What do you normally watch and get your information from?
Alternative news on YouTube, different YouTubers. I don't really want to speak on their names and stuff like that, but alternative news on the internet. And also during the pandemic, listening to whistleblowers that are doctors and nurses, and said how they're not doing proper procedures in the hospital, and how they're deliberately killing people in the hospitals, and how they don't want to pay older people their pension anymore, because if they're not over working age or childbearing, how they're useless to society. So I've been watching stuff like that.
What have you made of the news coverage of this, broadly speaking?
I really didn't watch it because it was so irritating. I couldn't watch it. I've been mainly watching stuff online and checking different country stuff, and it's all what they want you to see and what they're going to tell you. It's not who's telling us the truth. That's what I want to know. You know, there's nobody telling us the truth.
Do you think the lockdown was a necessary step for the government to take?
Yes, I do. I do think it was necessary, and I think until up to a certain point, I think everybody was quite cooperative. But then there was a certain point where things just, it was like a free for all. Everyone was doing their own thing, and when you watched politicians being interviewed, it was like they were living on a different planet to the reality that I had experienced, because you'd go to parks and you were supposed to be in a lockdown, but the parks would be full. And this was about a month or so ago. So whereas we were observing lockdown, my husband we had to stop working completely. And we were like following the rules, but it appeared as if it was a different set for different people.
When you see all the shops that are closed for the time being, how does that make you feel?
I think it's the thing of the future. I think anything you can't buy online, that's the only shops that will survive. Food shops, hairdressers, that's it. Everything else we'll have to buy online, which I think is really sad.
You know, actually the high street today, I think I've walked down the high street almost every day of lockdown, and it's lovely to see that today actually is very vibrant. There's lots of people out, the cafes have put tables outside, people are obviously socially distancing, having socially distancing meetups, and it feels quite lively. But yeah, there are still a lot of places where the doors are shut, and I worry for those places, and ones that already have a to let sign, who obviously haven't made it through this whole lockdown period, and that's it, that's the end of the little independent shops. So that is sad, and I do worry about that, because this was still such a lovely high street with lots of independent shops, and now I feel like we're just going to be taken out by all of those big chains, and you kind of lose a certain feel of a place when that happens, in my opinion anyway.
What do you think of how the government has handled all of this so far?
I think they're absolute rubbish. To be honest, I think they've done really badly, especially Boris. I think he was the best of a bunch when he got elected, anyone rather than Corbyn. But really, I've been very disappointed in how they've handled it, especially putting elderly people out of hospitals into care homes without checking whether they had the virus. Absolutely stupid.
You know, he's been very if you want to wear masks, if you don't want to wear masks, if you want to do this, if you want to do that. It's never
should be compulsory.
Yeah. You know, a lot of things that he said have been if you want to, but things have not been you must do something. You know, and it's always been next week, it should be tomorrow, like a lot of other countries.
Well, I think they handle it well, but still maybe they managed to lock down a little bit late. Maybe first cases they should do something. And of course I don't blame them, because we didn't know exactly how virus will react. China hid some information, I think. We didn't know nothing, so I don't blame government.
You know, we just kind of get these instructions, now you wear your mask. Wherever you go, you're going to have to wear a mask, without really questioning, is it necessary? Do the masks actually work? Because 5 minutes ago, masks weren't necessary, and they were useless because they didn't protect one another from anything.
So do you don't think there's been enough time to really debate these things properly?
Yeah, I think things are just being imposed on us now, that suddenly there's just going to be a whole load of new laws that are imposed maybe without sort of going through Parliament properly as they would have been done prior to lockdown, that sometimes we don't even know about. It's kind of like suddenly this has happened and now it's the law and end of.
Propaganda, stay in the house, stay in the home, stay at home. People were really scared. I know it's a scary situation, but it was just too much, I think.
So who was responsible for that? The government solely?
Well, the propaganda came from the government, of course. They wanted to protect everybody's lives like that, but the propaganda was just a little bit over, and people get very scared. It is impact the businesses and everything. Like all UK economy get impact with that, unfortunately.
So you work in retail. How did it impact your place of work specifically, this propaganda in your eyes?
Well, the customers are less now, but we try to accumulate more and more with time. The shop was closed for 2.5 months. We reopened, and slowly we will manage to get in track again, like normally.
If there's one thing that you could do, that you could change about to change UK society, what would it be?
Oh, that's a difficult one. Do you know what? I think I'd throw out all the politicians, all of them, every single one of them, every group, every party, and I think I'd allow some of these younger people, like maybe the people between the ages of maybe 25 and 40, or should I say 25 and 35, to be in power and make some new legislation, some new rules, people that are not down with the occult and the deep state. That's what I think I'd do. What else?
How do you determine who's down with it and who's not down with it?
Well, they'd be vetted. They'd be well vetted. We'd need to know if they follow these politicians and these deep state people's ideology, and if they do, then they wouldn't be able to be put in power.
Who's going to vet them?
It would have to be the people, because at the end of the day, it's the people that give the right for the government to make certain rules and regulations for us to follow. And if we feel like our government are not doing the right thing, we as the people have the right to overthrow the government.
Aren't you just describing democracy?
I am, but when they're not doing the right thing, they need to be thrown out.
I spoke to someone today who doesn't believe in the virus. What do you think of that?
Well, I had somebody as well that said that it's all, I don't know if I can use the word bullshit, but that's what she said. It's all bullshit, it's not real. And I couldn't believe it, actually. I said, well, how come all those people dying all over the world? So I don't know if it's not real.
And what did that person say in return?
She just laughed. Just like I do.
Is there anything else you want to say?
Nothing really. Just hope that everything goes back to normal. Government will help the people that lost their jobs and so on. Really. That's all I can say.